question to go to everyone. Our friend Alex Eden on Next STL recently opined and wrote a little bit about maybe he feels we're lacking kind of a transportation vision for our city and our region. And in his words, when that happens, then big contractors with their lobbyists just build more highways, and they determine your destiny for you. Do we have an adequate vision for what we're all talking about here tonight, and the things from the other shows that we haven't touched on?
Well, we do in the city, and as you probably understand how a transportation policy works in the state of Missouri, we have a gas tax, and the gas tax is restricted to roads and highways, and we don't really have many roads and highway needs. As we've talked about tonight, we have transit needs, bikes, peds, that sort of thing. That's why, there's discussion about moving to a sales tax to pay for transportation. That is good and bad. The bad is it's obviously regressive. The good is, for the first time ever, you can spend state highway money on these new alternatives, because we want to create a place in the city where you can get around without a car or not be dependent on a car if that's what you want to do. And we're clearly not there today, and we don't have a particularly strong transit system, and the state invests next to nothing in transit. So I do think we're going to have to, we have put together a draft of, and we'll obviously circulate it, and we're a long way from having the money for it, but a total transportation plan for the city, and roughly 2/3 of it is transit, bikes, peds, other alternatives, a little bit for airport and ports and things like that, but only a third or less would be for maintaining the traditional system. So the fact of the matter is we don't have money for these alternatives to any kind of scale, and until the state first of all gets funded, and secondly completely changes how it funds transportation, and then third, we're going to have a partner somewhere, and it's not going to be St. Charles, Franklin, or Jefferson County, so it's going to have to be St. Louis County at East-West Gateway to agree with us that, hey, we got to start spending less, much less on roads and bridges, and a lot more on transit, streetcars, bikes, peds, ports, and things like that.
Two of the things that the themes of popping up on Twitter tonight is that maybe too much of this is focused on the Central Corridor, and then do we need a north-south connection on Metrolink specifically, or are there other ways that might connect us to that? Questions open to the table.
I would be careful to think about the word vision. I mean, you mentioned, does St. Louis have a vision? And I think we have to be careful to assume that a vision is only referring to a sort of series of right-of-ways that are provided. And when you talk about the north-south axis, we could start to put layers of the city together, needs of the city. So for example, water management might be thought of together with a bike system. We could think about all the vacant land we have in North St. Louis City and how that might play into an open space system differently outside of the roads themselves, right? Bike lanes don't have to follow roads. I mean, this is what we do as designers, is we think about other models and how true vision might start to knit together different needs.
Yeah, there's still, I think this is apropos what Jeff said, there's still a powerful highway lobby here in Missouri and nationally. For example, we could flex federal highway funds toward transit, and I've seen the numbers on this, and this region does not transfer money out of highways into transit and bikeways the way we could. So there's still a very powerful highway juggernaut that's very difficult to influence. I think it's beginning, it's turning, right? But we're not there yet.
I was also glad to hear what Jeff was saying about sort of that transportation planning that can kind of lay out what that vision is and get it woven into budgeting processes and different plans by departments, for example. And I know that they're also looking to try to fund a bicycle coordinator. So that's kind of a national best practice, that you would have funded salaried positions where they can kind of implement whatever those larger plans are.
We haven't talked about, speaking of bikes, bike sharing. What's on your mind about bike sharing?
I'm going to let Todd talk about bike sharing, but I will. That's what he's working on. But I will say, we have a state, and sadly we have a governor that are completely MIA on active transportation and on transit, and the urban regions of the state are suffering for it. I think secondly, transit riders, people who are interested in this stuff, have not really thought about themselves as a political lobby and as a voting bloc, and that has to change to get the behavior of people like the governor, for their behavior to change. People have to start saying, we're voting based on these priorities, these transportation priorities. And third of all, I do think the city has been not at all transparent or not done a good job publishing our priority for our transportation network, or just our public works sort of priorities for the future. I think that's something people they want to see what the vision is, because it's easy for people now to identify problems in the system. They want to see that we are aware of those problems and that we have a plan, maybe not tomorrow, but within the next 5 years, the next decade, to address those problems.
Okay.